My name is Zion Hargrove, 67 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I understood what grief was. When Elaine died, she left me more than memories. 12 rental homes, a shopping plaza, and millions in stocks, all in my name. I kept it from our son, Thomas. Something told me to wait, to grieve in silence, before revealing her generosity. Thank God I listened to that voice. If you are watching this, please hit subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. The bombshell that came next changed everything I thought I knew about family. I met Elaine back in 1976 at Westbrook College. She was studying education while I was fumbling through business classes without much direction. We were both just 20 years old, with nothing but dreams and student loans. She had this laugh that would turn heads across the cafeteria, not because it was loud, but because it was so genuine. I spent 3 weeks working up the courage to talk to her, and when I finally did, she told me she had been waiting. We married 2 years later in a small ceremony that cost us exactly $412, including the cake my mother insisted on baking herself. We started out in a 1-bedroom apartment on the wrong side of town, both of us working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Elaine would teach during the day and waitress at night, while I worked construction and took night classes to finish my degree. Those early years shaped us. We promised each other we would never forget what it felt like to count pennies at the grocery store. Elaine kept every receipt in a small tin box, planning our budget down to the last dollar. I thought it was just frugality born from her childhood in a struggling farm family. I had no idea she was teaching herself investment strategies by reading library books after her shifts. Our son Thomas came along in 1983, a colicky baby who grew into a strong-willed child. From the beginning, he and Elaine had a complicated relationship. She had definite ideas about raising him with the same work ethic that had carried us through those lean years. Thomas resisted her structure, her rules, her expectations. As a teenager, he would lash out, calling her controlling and rigid. I often played mediator between them, trying to help them understand each other. I thought they were too similar to see it themselves, both stubborn and determined. What I failed to recognize was how deeply Thomas resented the modest lifestyle we maintained, even after things got easier financially. By the time Thomas went to college, Elaine had risen to become a respected school administrator. Her salary was good but not remarkable. What I never fully understood until after her death was that she had been quietly building a small fortune through careful investments and real estate acquisitions. She would mention a rental property here and there, but I had no concept of the scale of her financial activities. When she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 3 years ago, everything changed. The doctors gave her 18 months at best. She fought for 26, refusing to let the disease define her final chapter. During those months, she began having private meetings with lawyers and financial advisors. I assumed she was putting our modest affairs in order. 2 weeks before she died, when the hospice nurse gave us a moment alone, Elaine took my hand and said, "Zion, there are things I need to tell you about our finances." What followed was the most shocking conversation of our marriage. She revealed that over 30 years, she had systematically built a real estate portfolio, 12 rental homes scattered across 3 counties, a small shopping plaza on the north side of town, and a stock portfolio worth millions. All of it meticulously documented, all of it profitable, all of it in my name. "Why would you keep this from me?" I asked, not angry but bewildered. "I wanted to be sure," she whispered, her voice thin but determined. "Sure that we would never be dependent on anyone. Sure that we would always have choices, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it." After she passed, I was lost in grief complicated by this revelation. Who was this woman I had shared my life with for 40 years? How had she managed all this while raising our son and building her career in education? The Elaine I thought I knew and the business-savvy investor were 2 sides of a coin I had only seen one side of. The funeral was a blur of faces and condolences. Thomas flew in from Seattle, where he had been working in sales for a tech company. He was 39 now, with a wife named Amanda I had only met twice before. I noticed immediately how he seemed more interested in meeting with Elaine's attorney than in the actual memorial service. While other mourners shared stories about Elaine, Thomas was checking his watch. After most guests had left the reception at our home, Thomas cornered me in the kitchen. "Dad, we need to talk about Mom's will. When is the reading?" His timing felt inappropriate, his tone demanding. Something in his eyes triggered an instinct I cannot explain. In that moment, I decided to keep Elaine's financial empire to myself, at least temporarily. "Your mother was very private about finances, Thomas. There will be time for all that later. Right now, I just need to grieve." The look of frustration that flashed across his face only confirmed my instinct to wait. As he walked away to rejoin his wife, I remembered something Elaine had whispered during one of her final lucid moments. "Be careful with Thomas. Watch and wait before you tell him everything." At the time, I thought it was just the medication talking. Now, I wondered if my wife had been trying to warn me about something I had been too blind to see. Thomas and Amanda extended their stay to help me adjust, though Thomas spent more time on his phone than helping with anything. Just 3 days after we buried Elaine, he brought up the will again over breakfast. "Dad, I took the liberty of calling Mom's lawyer. He said you canceled the will reading appointment." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "I postponed it. I need some time." "Time for what?" Thomas pressed. "This is a simple matter of executing her wishes, unless there is something complicated about the will." His question carried an edge that made me uncomfortable. I found myself remembering the troubled years of his adolescence. Thomas at 14, caught shoplifting expensive headphones. Thomas at 16, joy riding in a neighbor's car without permission. Thomas at 17, getting suspended for selling test answers to classmates. Each time, Elaine had responded with firm consequences, while I had pushed for understanding. "He is testing boundaries," I would argue. "He needs patience." Elaine would look at me with those penetrating eyes and say, "What he needs is to learn that actions have consequences." Now, facing my adult son across the kitchen table, I wondered if my wife had been right all along. "The estate is more complex than you might think," I said carefully. "Your mother was very thorough. I want to understand everything before we proceed." Thomas leaned forward. "Complex how? Mom was a school administrator. You both lived well below your means. What could possibly be complex about your assets?" I changed the subject, but the exchange left me uneasy. That evening, I found a folder Elaine had left in her desk drawer labeled "For Zion Only." Inside was a letter and several bank statements. The letter began, "If you are reading this, I am gone, and you are likely confused about why I kept certain things from you. Please trust that everything I did was to protect our family." Further down, she wrote, "Thomas has money problems he has hidden from us. Serious ones. Before you reveal anything about our estate, please speak with Harold Bennett at First Security Bank. He has information you need." The next day, while Thomas and Amanda were out, I visited Harold. What he told me left me shaken. Thomas had approached Elaine 6 months before her diagnosis, asking for a loan of $75,000 to cover what he called temporary business setbacks. After some investigation, Elaine discovered he had accumulated gambling debts approaching $200,000. She had paid off the most dangerous of his creditors, but refused to give him direct access to money. Instead, she arranged for him to receive financial counseling and set up a payment plan for him to repay her over time. According to Harold's records, Thomas had made exactly 2 payments before stopping altogether. That night, Thomas suggested we have dinner together. He brought Amanda, who seemed withdrawn and nervous. Throughout the meal, Thomas kept steering the conversation toward Elaine's financial affairs. "Mom always said she wanted to leave something for her grandchildren," he mentioned casually. "Amanda and I have been thinking about starting a family. It would be good to know what resources we might have available." Amanda looked down at her plate, a flush spreading across her cheeks. I noticed she barely touched her food or the wine Thomas kept pouring for her. After dinner, I excused myself to use the bathroom. Passing Elaine's office, I saw the light on underneath the door. I opened it to find Thomas at her desk, rifling through drawers. "What are you doing?" I demanded. He straightened quickly. "Just looking for some photos of Mom for the memorial video I am putting together." "In her financial files." I got sidetracked. he said with a shrug that did not reach his eyes. The next day, I met with Elaine's longtime lawyer, Philip Ramirez. I shared my concerns about Thomas's behavior and the information from Harold Bennett. "Your instincts are good," Philip said after listening carefully. "Elaine came to see me about a year before her diagnosis, concerned about Thomas. She made certain arrangements that she asked me not to reveal, even to you, until the appropriate time." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means that Elaine left specific instructions about how and when certain information should be disclosed. She asked that I follow a timeline she established, with the first major disclosure scheduled for 2 weeks after her passing." "Why would she do that?" Philip removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Your wife was an extraordinary woman, Zion. She saw things clearly, sometimes painfully so. I believe she anticipated certain reactions and planned accordingly." I left his office with more questions than answers, but also with a growing sense that I needed to be very careful. That evening, Thomas became openly aggressive about the will. "This is ridiculous," he said, pacing my living room. "I have responsibilities, businesses waiting on me in Seattle. I cannot just hang around indefinitely while you drag your feet." "No one is asking you to stay," I said quietly. "And leave you to handle everything alone? What kind of son would that make me look like?" The phrase struck me odd. Not what kind of son would I be, but what would it make me look like? Later that week, Amanda approached me while Thomas was out. She seemed nervous, checking the driveway repeatedly to ensure he was not returning. "Mr. Hargrove," she began hesitantly. "Zion, there are things you should know about our situation." Before she could continue, we heard Thomas's car in the driveway. She quickly moved away, whispering, "Be careful. He is not in a good place right now." That night, I noticed a car parked down the street, a dark sedan with 2 men sitting inside. The next morning, it was gone, but I spotted it again that afternoon at the supermarket. When I mentioned it to Philip on the phone, he was silent for a long moment. "Lock your doors tonight, Zion," he finally said, "and call me immediately if those men approach you." I went to bed that night with an uneasy feeling that Elaine had foreseen something I was only beginning to understand. Exactly 2 weeks after Elaine's funeral, a courier delivered a sealed envelope from Philip Ramirez's office. Inside was a letter in Elaine's handwriting, dated 6 months before her death. "My dearest Zion," it began. "If you are reading this, then Philip has followed my instructions, and exactly 14 days have passed since my funeral. I hope these have been days of reflection and observation for you. By now, I suspect Thomas has shown his hand in some way, pushing for information about our estate." I sat heavily in Elaine's reading chair, my hands shaking slightly as I continued reading. "What I did not tell you during our life together is that I have been worried about Thomas for many years, not just as a mother concerned for her child's character, but as someone who recognized destructive patterns I saw in my own father, who gambled away our family farm when I was 12. Her words hit me like a physical blow. Elaine had rarely spoken about her childhood beyond basic facts. I had known her father died young, but she had always said it was from heart disease. After Thomas came to me for money last year, I hired a private investigator named Samuel Reeves. His complete report is with Philip, but I will summarize what he found. Thomas has a gambling addiction that has progressively worsened over the past 5 years. He has exhausted his savings, maxed out multiple credit cards, taken loans from dangerous people, and has been embezzling from his employer to cover his debts. My chest tightened as I continued reading. What concerns me most is what Samuel discovered about Thomas's plans for any inheritance. He has been recorded telling his bookmaker that he expects to come into serious money upon my death, and has already promised properties and assets to various creditors. He has no intention of keeping any of it. Zion. Everything we worked for would be squandered within months. I thought about the dark sedan, the men watching my house, and felt a chill. This is why I have structured our estate the way I have, placing everything in your name with specific conditions for Thomas. Philip has the complete plan and will guide you through it step by step. For now, continue to keep the full extent of our assets private. Watch Thomas carefully. The way he responds to limited information will tell you everything you need to know about whether he is ready for the responsibility of wealth. The letter continued with specific instructions and ended with words that brought tears to my eyes. I have loved you completely for 40 years, Zion. Trust that I love our son just as deeply, which is why I cannot allow him to destroy himself with money he is not ready to handle. That afternoon, I drove to one of the addresses listed in Elaine's files, a small apartment building with 8 units on the east side of town. As I stood looking at the well-maintained property, a middle-aged woman approached me from the manager's office. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I am Zion Hargrove," I said. "Elaine Hargrove's husband." Her face softened immediately. "Oh, Mr. Hargrove, I am so sorry for your loss. Mrs. Hargrove was an amazing landlady. We all miss her terribly." Over coffee in her small office, the manager, Teresa, told me how Elaine would visit monthly, not just to collect rent but to check on tenants. She had established an emergency fund for residents who faced unexpected hardships and had helped several families through medical crises and job losses. She never wanted recognition, Teresa explained. She made me promise not to tell tenants where the help came from. She just said everyone deserves a safety net. As I drove home, I tried to reconcile this new image of my wife with the woman I thought I had known completely. How had she found time to manage these properties and care for the people in them while maintaining her career and our home life? When I arrived home, Thomas was waiting, visibly agitated. "Where have you been? I have been calling you all day." "I had errands to run," I said, not ready to share what I had learned. "Well, while you were out, I got a call from a man named Vincent who says Mom owed him money for consulting services. He was not very pleasant." "Your mother did not owe anyone money," I said firmly. Thomas ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so like his mother it made my heart ache. "Look, Dad, I think it is time we were honest with each other. I know Mom must have had some savings, investments, something. These people who keep calling, they are not going away. If there are assets we can liquidate quickly, we need to do it." "What people, Thomas? Who exactly keeps calling?" He avoided my eyes. "Just business associates. Mom had interactions with lots of people you might not know about." "Like Vincent?" Thomas flinched slightly at the name. "Yes, like him. Look, I promised some people I would settle accounts after Mom passed. I thought she would have left things in order." "She did leave things in order," I said quietly. "Just not in the way you expected." That evening, Thomas and I had our first real argument since he was a teenager. It began with his casual suggestion that we sell the house to simplify things, and escalated when I refused to discuss it. "You are not thinking clearly," he insisted. "This place is too big for you alone. It makes financial sense to downsize." "This is my home, Thomas. Your mother and I built our life here. It is just a house," he snapped. "And frankly, we could both use the cash right now." "We? What makes you think you are entitled to the proceeds from selling my home?" His face darkened. "Because I am your son. Because Mom would have wanted to make sure I was taken care of." "Is that what this is about? You being taken care of?" In his frustration, Thomas let something slip. "I have already talked to a developer who is interested in this property. He can close quickly, all cash. We could have the money by the end of the month." I stared at my son, truly seeing him for perhaps the first time. "You arranged to sell my house while your mother was still alive?" His expression told me everything I needed to know. With sudden clarity, I understood why Elaine had been so careful, why she had planned so meticulously. She had seen what I had refused to see for decades. "I think you should go back to Seattle, Thomas. We will discuss the estate when Philip says the time is right." "I am not leaving without what is mine," he said, his voice low and threatening. "Right now, nothing is yours," I responded, feeling a strange calm. "And from where I stand, you have a long way to go before that changes." After he stormed out, I called Philip and told him everything. His response was measured but firm. Elaine anticipated this reaction. "Tomorrow we move to the next phase of her plan. Do not worry about the men watching your house. I have arranged for security to keep an eye on things." That night, I sat in Elaine's office, surrounded by evidence of a life of careful planning and secret generosity, and finally allowed myself to grieve not just for my wife, but for the son we had both loved, but perhaps failed in different ways. The next morning, Thomas arrived with a young man he introduced as my attorney. Jared Winters. The lawyer looked barely out of law school, with an expensive suit and an aggressive demeanor that seemed practiced rather than natural. Mr. Hargrove, Jared began without preamble, my client has reason to believe that significant assets are being withheld from the estate inventory. We are prepared to file for an emergency injunction if full disclosure is not made immediately. I looked at Thomas, who avoided my gaze. You are contesting a will you have not even seen yet. We are simply ensuring transparency, the young lawyer continued. Given the suspicious circumstances and the delay in execution of the estate. What suspicious circumstances? I asked, genuinely confused. Your refusal to proceed with the will reading, your secretive meetings with your late wife's attorney, your unexplained absences to visit properties not previously disclosed to family members. The realization that I had been followed made my skin crawl. I stood up. I think you should both leave now. Any further communication can go through Philip Ramirez. Mr. Ramirez represents the estate, Jared said smoothly. He cannot represent your interests if they conflict with other beneficiaries. Then I suggest you direct your concerns to him anyway. This meeting is over. After they left, I received the first of several threatening phone calls. A man with a gravelly voice simply said, Thomas Hargrove owes us $300,000. We hear his mommy left a fortune. Time to pay up, old man. I reported the call to Philip, who immediately contacted the police. While an officer was still at my house taking the report, Amanda arrived alone, her eyes red from crying. I am so sorry, she said once the officer had left. I did not know it would get this bad. Over tea at my kitchen table, Amanda revealed the full extent of Thomas's gambling problem. It had started with sports betting during their first year of marriage and escalated to high-stakes poker and eventually casino loans. He promised me after each big loss that he was done, she said, twisting her wedding ring. But there was always another game, another chance to win it all back. When your wife got sick, he became obsessed with the idea that her death would solve all our problems. She looked up, her eyes filled with shame. I tried to tell him how wrong that was, how sick it was to think that way about his own mother. That is when he started. She trailed off, pulling up her sleeve to reveal a fading bruise. Has he hurt you before? I asked, horrified. She nodded. It started after his biggest loss last year. He owes money to some very dangerous people, Zion. People who do not care that he is underwater on his mortgage, or that we have had to sell our car. They just want their money. Why are you still with him? Her hand went unconsciously to her stomach, and I understood. How far along are you? 4 months, she whispered. Thomas does not know yet. I am afraid of what he might do if he thinks there is another claim on any inheritance. After Amanda left, I discovered several small valuables missing from the house. A silver frame that had held our wedding photo, an antique watch that had belonged to my father. When confronted by phone, Thomas denied taking anything, suggesting I was becoming confused and forgetful. 2 days later, we had a disastrous family dinner at Thomas's insistence. He brought Amanda and his lawyer friend, while I invited Philip as a precaution. What was meant to be a reconciliation turned into an accusation. You have been hiding assets, Thomas said bluntly after the appetizers. We have proof that Mom owned property you have not disclosed. Philip interjected smoothly. All assets are properly accounted for in the estate inventory, which will be disclosed at the appropriate time according to Mrs. Hargrove's explicit instructions. And when exactly is this appropriate time? Thomas demanded. When the executor deems it appropriate, Philip replied. The executor? You mean my father, who has been acting erratically since Mom's death, who has been visiting properties he never knew existed until recently, who has been having private meetings with bank managers and tenants. I am sitting right here, Thomas, I said quietly. If you have questions for me, ask them directly. What happened next shocked everyone at the table. Thomas stood up, his face flushed with anger, and shouted, Fine. Where is the money, Dad? Where are the properties? What did she leave me? The restaurant fell silent. Amanda looked mortified, while the young lawyer tried unsuccessfully to get Thomas to sit down. Your mother left specific instructions, I said, keeping my voice calm. I am following them. This is my inheritance we are talking about. Thomas was practically screaming now. Money I need now. Not whenever you decide I can have it. Thomas, Amanda whispered urgently. People are staring. Please sit down. He turned on her viciously. Shut up. You have no idea what is at stake here. I stood up then. That is enough. You will not speak to your wife that way in my presence. This dinner is over. As we were leaving, Thomas grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks. This is not over, Dad. I will contest everything. I will have you declared incompetent if that is what it takes. The threat hung in the air between us, father and son, suddenly strangers to each other. The next day, Philip arrived at my house with a thick folder. We found these in Elaine's safety deposit box, he explained. She left instructions for them to be delivered to you 30 days after her death. But given the escalating situation, I think you need to see them now. Inside were documents from a private investigator with surveillance photos of Thomas meeting with known loan sharks, copies of threatening emails Thomas had sent to Elaine demanding money, and, most disturbing of all, a consultation letter from a lawyer discussing how Thomas could have me declared mentally incompetent after Elaine's death to gain control of any assets. He planned this before she even died, I said, feeling physically ill. Elaine knew, Philip said gently. That is why she put everything in your name only, with a trust structure that activates under specific conditions. Thomas cannot touch anything without meeting her requirements, no matter what legal maneuvers he attempts. That night, 2 men in the now familiar dark sedan parked directly in front of my house. They made no attempt to hide, occasionally revving the engine or flashing the headlights. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, the car was gone. The next morning, I received another letter from Elaine, this one delivered by courier with instructions that it be opened exactly at 10 in the morning with Philip present via video call. My darling Zion, she began, if you are reading this, then things with Thomas have deteriorated as I feared they might. It is time for the next phase of the plan. Tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon, you, Thomas, Amanda, and Philip should meet at our home. Everything will be revealed then. Stay strong. Trust the process. I loved you completely in life, and that love continues to guide these actions. I called Thomas to arrange the meeting. His voice was tense but triumphant. Finally, he said, I will be there. What he did not know, what none of us knew, was that Elaine had arranged one final revelation that would change everything. The day of the meeting arrived with an atmosphere of foreboding. I spent the morning putting Elaine's photos in albums, a task I had been avoiding. Each image of our life together, each captured smile and moment of joy, strengthened my resolve to honor her final wishes, whatever they might be. At 2:30, a half hour before the scheduled meeting, Thomas arrived with 2 men I had never seen before. They were both large, with the hard eyes of people accustomed to intimidation. Thomas did not bother introducing them. We need to talk before the others get here, he said, brushing past me into the living room. The 2 men followed, one stationing himself by the front door, the other by the entrance to the kitchen. Who are these men, Thomas? I asked, feeling suddenly vulnerable in my own home. Business associates, he said dismissively. They are here to make sure everything goes smoothly. By intimidating an old man in his own home? Thomas's expression hardened. Cut the helpless old man act, Dad. We both know you are holding out. These gentlemen represent people I owe money to. Serious money. They are not leaving until they get what they came for. And what exactly is that? The deed to Mom's shopping plaza would be a good start. I know about it, so do not bother denying it exists. The rental properties too. My sources tell me they are worth at least $4 million altogether. I looked at my son, this stranger wearing Thomas's face. Your sources? You mean the people you have had following me? He shrugged. Information is power. Now, where is the real will? The one that lists all of Mom's assets? There is only one will, Thomas. Philip has it. Bullshit, he exploded. A school administrator does not secretly amass millions without documentation. Where is her real estate portfolio? Her stock certificates? Her banking information? One of the men stepped forward. Mr. Hargrove, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your son owes my employer a lot of money. We know your wife had significant assets. If you cooperate now, things will go much better for everyone. I was trying to think of how to respond when we heard a car in the driveway. Thomas gestured for the man to check who it was. "It is a woman," he reported. "Blonde. Looks like your son's wife." Thomas looked surprised. "Amanda? She is not supposed to be here yet." The front door opened, and Amanda entered, stopping short when she saw the scene before her. "What is going on? Who are these men?" "Business associates," Thomas said sharply. "What are you doing here early?" "I followed you," she said, her voice stronger than I had ever heard it. "I saw you pick these men up. I knew you were planning something." The look Thomas gave her would have made me step back if it had been directed at me. "You followed me? Since when do you spy on me?" "Since I found out you remortgaged our house without telling me," she shot back. "Since I discovered you emptied our joint savings account. Since I realized you care more about gambling than your marriage or your unborn child." Thomas went completely still. "What did you just say?" "I am pregnant, Thomas. 4 months along. I was waiting for the right time to tell you, but there never seemed to be one. You have been too obsessed with your mother's money to notice anything about me." One of the men shifted uncomfortably. This domestic drama clearly was not what he had signed up for. The second man, however, seemed unmoved. "This is all very touching," he said coldly, "but it does not change the fact that Mr. Hargrove here needs to produce the documents we came for." Amanda turned to look at the man, and something like recognition flashed in her eyes. She pulled out her phone. "Put that away," Thomas snapped. "No," she said firmly. "I am calling Philip Ramirez. He should be here for this." "Philip works for my father," Thomas said. "He is part of the problem." "Actually," Amanda said, her finger hovering over her phone, "he works for your mother. Still, even now." Her words confused me, but before I could ask what she meant, she continued. "I have been meeting with Elaine for months before she died. She knew everything, Thomas, about the gambling, the debts, the plans to sell off her properties as soon as she was gone." Thomas's face contorted with rage. "You betrayed me? To my mother?" "I protected you," Amanda countered. "She was going to cut you off completely when she found out you tried to use her properties as collateral for loans while she was still alive. I convinced her to give you another chance." Thomas lunged toward Amanda, his hand raised. I moved without thinking, putting myself between them. His fist connected with my jaw instead, sending me stumbling backward. "Thomas!" Amanda screamed. "Stop this." The larger of the two men grabbed Thomas's arm. "Hey, take it easy. We are not here for this kind of trouble." Suddenly, the sound of sirens filled the air. The two men exchanged alarmed glances. "You called the cops?" Thomas accused Amanda. "No," she said, looking as surprised as he was. "I did not call anyone." The front door burst open, and 2 police officers entered with weapons drawn. "Police! Everyone on the ground now." As we all complied, Philip Ramirez walked in behind them, accompanied by a stern-looking woman in a business suit. "Perfect timing," Philip said calmly. "I see we arrived just in time." "What is going on?" Thomas demanded from his position on the floor. "How did they know to come here?" Philip gestured around the room. "Your mother installed a state-of-the-art security system in this house before she died. Silent alarm, direct connection to the police. She was very concerned about your associates possibly making an unwelcome visit." The officers handcuffed the 2 men, who offered no resistance. One officer helped me to my feet, while another questioned Thomas about the men's identities. "They are just friends," Thomas insisted. "This is all a misunderstanding. Friends who are known associates of Vincent Calabrese, a loan shark under investigation in 3 states, said the woman who had arrived with Philip. She showed a badge. "Detective Maria Suarez, Organized Crime Division. We have been watching Mr. Calabrese's operation for months. These 2 gentlemen are going to help us with our inquiries." As the officers led the men away, I felt a sudden wave of dizziness. The events of the day, the shock of Thomas's betrayal, the physical blow, all caught up with me at once. I saw Amanda's concerned face, heard Philip's voice calling my name, and then darkness claimed me. I woke up in a hospital room, the steady beep of monitors creating a rhythmic backdrop to my confused thoughts. It took me a moment to remember what had happened. When I tried to sit up, a gentle hand pressed me back down. "Easy there, Mr. Hargrove. You need to rest. Amanda sat in a chair beside my bed, looking tired but determined. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. How long have I been here? I asked, my voice rough. Just overnight. The doctors say you had a stress-induced cardiac event. Not a heart attack, but serious enough to keep you for observation. Memories flooded back. Thomas's face contorted with rage. The two thugs in my living room. The police. Where is Thomas? Amanda's expression tightened. He was released on bail this morning. Obstruction of justice. Conspiracy to commit fraud. They found evidence on his phone linking him directly to Vincent Calabrese's organization. I closed my eyes, the pain in my chest having nothing to do with my physical condition. I never thought it would come to this. Elaine did, Amanda said softly. She saw it coming long before any of us. Philip arrived a few hours later, carrying a laptop and a thick folder. After assuring himself I was well enough for a serious conversation, he set up the computer on the adjustable hospital table. It is time for you to understand the full extent of Elaine's plan, he said. Amanda already knows parts of it, as she was working with Elaine for the last 6 months of her life. I looked at my daughter-in-law with new eyes. You were helping Elaine? How? Amanda shifted in her seat. After I discovered how deep Thomas was in with the loan sharks, I went to Elaine in desperation. I thought maybe she could talk sense into him or help him get professional help. What I did not expect was to find she already knew most of it. Elaine had been monitoring Thomas's financial activities for years, Philip explained. Not intrusively, but she had set up alerts with certain financial institutions after the first time he came to her for a large loan. She never told me about any of that, I said, feeling a renewed sense of loss for the woman I thought I had known completely. She wanted to protect you from the worst of it, Amanda said gently. She told me you always wanted to see the best in Thomas, that you believed he would outgrow his problems if given enough love and support. She tried that approach with her own father, Philip added. It did not work. She watched her mother try to love her father out of his gambling addiction, watched her make excuses for him, cover for him. In the end, they lost everything. He opened his folder and withdrew a document. This is the complete trust document Elaine created. It is quite extensive, but the basic structure is this. All assets are held in the Elaine Hargrove Family Trust, with you as the primary trustee. Thomas cannot access any portion of the inheritance unless he meets specific conditions. What conditions? 1 year of verified gambling addiction treatment, financial counseling, regular drug testing, and perhaps most importantly, he must work directly with you in managing one of the rental properties for a minimum of 18 months. Learning the business from the ground up before he can have any decision-making authority. I thought about the Thomas I had seen yesterday, the angry, entitled stranger who had brought criminals into our family home. He will never agree to that. He may not have a choice, Philip said. The alternative is complete disinheritance, and given his current legal troubles, the structured support of the trust may be his best option for avoiding serious jail time. Amanda cleared her throat. There is more, Zion. Something Elaine told only me, waiting for the right moment to reveal it to everyone. She placed her hand on her stomach. Elaine knew I was pregnant before I told her. Woman's intuition, she said. She created a separate educational trust for any grandchildren, completely independent of Thomas's portion of the inheritance. She wanted to make sure the next generation would be protected, no matter what choices Thomas made. Philip nodded. Beyond the properties and stocks you already know about, Elaine established several charitable foundations in your family name. One supporting education for children from gambling-affected families, another providing housing assistance for domestic violence survivors. My head was spinning with these revelations. How did she manage all this? When did she find the time? Your wife was an extraordinary woman, Philip said with genuine admiration. She built this financial empire one careful decision at a time. Over decades, the rental properties were her first investments, purchased when property values dropped in the early 90s. The shopping plaza came later, a foreclosure she got for 30 cents on the dollar. Her stock portfolio was the result of disciplined, regular investing, starting the year you were married. He turned the laptop to face me. She left you a video will, Zion. She wanted both you and Thomas to see it together, but given the circumstances, I think you should see it now. Amanda has already viewed it. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. Elaine's face filled the screen, thin from her illness, but her eyes as sharp and determined as ever. She had recorded this in our garden, her favorite roses blooming behind her. It must have been just weeks before she died. "Zion, my love," she began. "If you are watching this, then I am gone, and you have discovered the extent of what I built for our family. I am sorry for keeping so much from you." It began innocently enough, my small attempts at investing to supplement our income. By the time it grew into something substantial, I had become accustomed to handling it alone. She paused, adjusting herself in her seat. "But that is not the whole truth. I also kept it from you because I saw troubling signs in Thomas from an early age, signs that reminded me too much of my father. You always thought I was too hard on him. Perhaps I was. Or perhaps I simply recognized patterns you could not see." Her image looked directly into the camera, directly into my eyes across time. "I have structured our estate to protect Thomas from himself, and to protect what I have built from his self-destruction. He will call it controlling. He will be angry. But if he truly wants to change, this trust gives him a path forward, with support and accountability." She smiled then, the smile I had fallen in love with 40 years ago. "As for you, my darling, I leave you not just material wealth but a purpose. These properties represent security for dozens of families. The foundations can help hundreds more. I trust you to be the steward I know you can be." There was more, specific instructions and heartfelt messages for both Thomas and Amanda. By the time the video ended, I was weeping openly, mourning anew the remarkable woman I had shared my life with. "She thought of everything," I whispered. "Almost everything," Philip said. "She could not anticipate Thomas bringing loan sharks to your home or physically threatening you. That escalated beyond even her worst expectations." "What happens now?" I asked. Amanda took my hand. "Now we implement Elaine's plan, with one important addition. I have filed for separation from Thomas. I will not bring a child into an unsafe environment. If he wants to be part of this baby's life, he has to get help first." I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility Elaine had placed on my shoulders, but also feeling, for the first time since her death, that I was not alone in carrying it. "When Thomas is ready," I said, "we will show him the video. We will offer him the path Elaine created. Whether he takes it or not will be his choice." Philip gathered his papers. "The police want to speak with you once you are feeling stronger. Thomas's association with Calabresi's organization may have legal implications for him beyond what we initially thought." "I will cooperate fully," I said. Elaine wanted truth and accountability. That starts now. As Philip left, Amanda remained by my bedside. "I should have come to you sooner," she said, "before it got this bad." "You did what you thought was right," I told her. "So did Elaine. So did I, in my own misguided way. We all failed Thomas in different ways, but maybe it is not too late to help him now." That night, alone in my hospital room, I reread Elaine's letters, studied the trust documents, and began to understand the magnitude of the responsibility she had entrusted to me. Not just financial management, but the harder task of holding firm boundaries with our son, while still leaving the door open for redemption. I fell asleep thinking of Elaine in our garden, planning and building, protecting and providing, loving us in ways I was only beginning to understand. 6 months after that fateful confrontation in our living room, I stood on the front porch of one of Elaine's rental properties, watching Thomas carefully repair a broken railing. His movements were deliberate, his focus complete. The anger that had seemed permanently etched on his face had softened, replaced by something I recognized as determination. The path to this moment had not been easy. Thomas spent 30 days in a residential treatment program for gambling addiction, followed by 3 months in a halfway house as part of his plea agreement with the district attorney. Vincent Calabrese and his organization faced federal charges, with Thomas providing key testimony in exchange for leniency. The most difficult moment came 2 weeks after my release from the hospital, when Thomas, Amanda, Philip, and I gathered in Elaine's office to watch her video will together. I will never forget the look on my son's face as his mother addressed him directly from beyond the grave. Thomas, she said, her eyes somehow both stern and loving, if you are watching this with the others, then things have likely gotten very bad. You have made choices that have hurt yourself and those who love you. But I want you to know that this trust is not a punishment. It is a lifeline, designed by someone who understands addiction because she watched it destroy her own father. Thomas had wept then, perhaps for the first time since childhood. Not the manipulative tears I had seen him use to get his way as a teenager, but deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from his very core. I never knew, he had whispered. About Grandpa, about the gambling. She never told me. She thought it would be enough to teach you responsibility, I said. She did not want her father's shadow to touch your life. In the months that followed, Thomas embraced the structure Elaine had created with a humility that surprised us all. He attended Gamblers Anonymous meetings 3 times a week. He worked with a financial counselor to create a repayment plan for his debts. And most significantly, he began working alongside me, learning the property management business from the ground up. Amanda maintained her separation, but allowed Thomas regular visits as her pregnancy progressed. When their daughter was born in February, they named her Elaine, a peace offering and a promise wrapped in one small, perfect package. Now, as spring turned the world green again, I watched my son complete his repair work and step back to examine it. "What do you think?" he asked, genuinely seeking my opinion. "Solid work," I replied. "Your mother would approve." He nodded, accepting the compliment without the defensive posture that had once been his default. I have been thinking about what she said in her video, about these properties representing security for dozens of families. I never thought about it that way before. Neither did I admitted. I knew she owned some rental properties, but I had no idea of the care she put into selecting tenants, setting fair rents, creating emergency funds. She saw it as a responsibility, not just an investment. Thomas wiped his hands on a rag. The tenant in Unit 4 told me Mom helped her pay for nursing school. Just gave her a scholarship, no strings attached. Said Mom told her that education was the best investment anyone could make. I smiled, picturing Elaine making such arrangements quietly, without seeking recognition. That sounds like her. "I want to help expand the foundation," Thomas said suddenly. "The one for education. I have been talking to Amanda about it. She thinks we could create a specific program for children whose parents are in recovery." The suggestion took me by surprise. 6 months ago, Thomas had been willing to sell everything Elaine had built. Now he was thinking about expanding her legacy. "Your mother would like that very much," I said, my throat tight with emotion. Later that evening, Amanda brought baby Elaine for dinner at my house. Our weekly family meal now, a treasured ritual. Thomas arrived separately, still respecting the boundaries Amanda had established. As we sat in the living room after dinner, Amanda nursing the baby while Thomas and I discussed plans for renovating one of the older properties, I felt Elaine's presence more strongly than I had since her death. "I found something yesterday that I think you both should see," I said, retrieving a small wooden box from Elaine's desk. Inside was a journal, its pages filled with her neat handwriting. It appears to be a record of every property purchase, every major investment decision, with notes about her thinking process. I handed it to Thomas. The last entry was made a week before she died. It says, "My greatest hope is that Thomas will one day see this business as I do, not just as buildings and bank accounts, but as a way to provide stability in an unstable world. If he can learn that lesson, then everything I have built will be in good hands." Thomas ran his fingers over his mother's handwriting. "I wish I could tell her I finally understand." "I think she knows," Amanda said softly, looking down at their daughter. "I think she planned for this moment." The Elaine Hargrove Foundation was officially launched the following month, with an initial focus on educational support for families affected by addiction. Thomas took on an active role in its management, applying the business skills he was learning from me in a way that would have made his mother proud. Amanda and Thomas began marriage counseling, taking small, careful steps toward reconciliation. The trust Elaine had established provided structure and security, but it was their own commitment to change that gave their relationship a second chance. As for me, I found unexpected joy in carrying forward Elaine's vision, working with the property managers she had carefully selected, maintaining the relationships she had built with tenants, and discovering new ways to extend her generosity. 1 year after her death, we held a small ceremony to dedicate a garden at the community center near our shopping plaza. The Elaine Memorial Garden would provide fresh produce for local families in need, another practical expression of her belief that wealth carried responsibility. Standing beside the newly planted beds, watching Thomas explain composting techniques to a group of interested neighbors, I felt a sense of peace I had not experienced since before Elaine's diagnosis. Her greatest gift had not been the financial security she left behind, though that was substantial. It had been the wisdom to see what each of us needed to grow beyond our limitations. For Thomas, it was structure and accountability. For Amanda, it was support and independence. For me, it was purpose and connection. Elaine had known that simply leaving money to Thomas would have destroyed him. Instead, she created a path that forced him to confront his addiction, develop new skills, and earn not just his inheritance but his self-respect. As we walked back to our cars after the dedication, Thomas fell into step beside me. "Do you think she forgives me?" he asked quietly. "For everything I put her through? For what I almost did to you?" I considered his question carefully. Your mother understood addiction better than either of us knew. I think she did not see it as something to forgive, but as something to overcome. And I think she would be immensely proud of the work you are doing now. He nodded, absorbing my words. Sometimes I feel like she orchestrated all of this, like she somehow knew exactly what would happen and planned accordingly. She was always 10 steps ahead of everyone else, I agreed. But even she could not have predicted everything. What matters is that when the moment of choice came, you finally made the right one. That night, sitting in Elaine's reading chair with her journal open on my lap, I whispered to the empty room, "You were right, my love, about everything. He is finding his way back, just as you hoped he would." What began as a tragic story of addiction, secrecy, and betrayal had transformed into something else entirely, a testament to one woman's foresight and a family's capacity for growth and healing. The inheritance Elaine left was far more than properties and stocks. It was a blueprint for redemption, a second chance disguised as a trust document. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to help someone you love, even when they could not see it was for their own good? Like Elaine did for Thomas, sometimes true love means setting boundaries that feel harsh in the moment, but lead to healing in the long run. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more family stories that remind us growth often comes through our greatest challenges. Thank you for listening. And remember, the most valuable inheritance we leave behind is not what is in our bank accounts, but the wisdom we share and the values we instill.